Hello and welcome to the Save Our Sperrins podcast, Voices from the Frontline. My name is Morella Fife, your host and member of the Save Our Sperrins team, and this podcast comes from the Sperrin Mountains in Northern Ireland. This is an ancient land shaped by mountains and bogs and by the communities born from them, and whose same peoples are now living with growing pressures from mining and large-scale upland industrialisation. That pressure isn't unique to here. Across the world, the so-called energy transition is driving ever more extraction. There's growing demand for critical minerals and rare earth metals, and that demand is landing on local communities, asking them to live with the long-term impacts of toxic mining. Season 1 looked at why the Sperrin Mountains matter through the voices of the people who live here and know this place well. Season 2 keeps those local voices at the centre while also stepping back a bit. In Season 2, we look at extractivism more broadly, how it's been justified, how it's fundamental to a system of accelerated growth, plundering ever more from a finite planet designed only to feed predatory capitalism, creating untold and unprecedented misery simply to support the bottom line of a balance sheet in some distant glass-walled boardroom, far from the ground we're standing on. Thanks for listening. Let's begin. Today's episode is about Save the Moat, Save the Sperrins, a grassroots campaign working to protect the Moat, one of the Mullaghs, a series of 4 distinct peaks in the central Sperrins, designated as an area of outstanding natural beauty, from what is, in reality, an industrial-scale wind factory and the grid infrastructure that would accompany it. Since 2023, Ann-Louise and others in the community, alongside Progressive Politics Northern Ireland, PPNI, a cross-party political activist group working towards an inclusive and more forward-thinking NI, have made a stand to protect peatlands, rivers and mountains, defending the health and rights of local residents, challenging the idea that the Sperrins can simply be redesignated as a sacrifice zone, somewhere to site large infrastructure because it looks empty on a map. Ann-Louise Bresnahan is a designer by background. Her work has been in textiles, art, restoration, preserving vintage fabrics, valuing what already exists, working with care and attention in a world that tends to throw things away. Now shapes how she approaches this campaign, along with Save the Moat. She has also been raising concerns about proposed data centre development at Foyle Port in the city of Derry and elsewhere, and what they mean in terms of water and energy demand, grid capacity, and the knock-on effects for ordinary people here. I asked her onto the podcast not just to talk about turbines. The proposed industrialisation of the Moat is part of something much bigger. We've seen it with the gold mining. We're seeing it now with wind development. Rural landscapes being reclassified as energy zones. Peatlands disturbed in the name of progress. Communities forced to carry the burden of infrastructure serving distant corporations, relentless extraction, and an economy addicted to expansion. In this conversation, we talk about peat bogs and carbon capture, about water, about power lines and data infrastructure, about community health, about policy, and about who benefits from decisions being made. At the centre of it all is a simple question. What kind of transition is this, and who's it really for? Because whether it's gold mining or wind factories in the Sperrins are facing decisions that will shape this place for generations. And those decisions deserve serious scrutiny and honest examination. Welcome, Ann-Louise, and thanks for joining us today. And would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're born, what your background is, what you've been doing before you got involved with Save the Moat, Save the Sperrins. And let's begin there.
Thanks for having me, Morella. I suppose my background is I've always been an art person and into art, and I was born and raised in Oma, so an Oma girl. And my background, my degree was in design and textiles. So, very much had a love for textiles and design and art and, creating really, so I suppose then I kind of moved into, textiles and primarily vintage, textiles. And I had a wee shop called Rustic Runway, for many years, and it's still online. I married a fella called Eugene Kerlin, and he's from Habrack. So we did our fair share of traveling around the world and seeing all the sights. But I suppose for a lot of people, you sometimes want to move back home and put your roots somewhere that's familiar. And we decided to build our house in Highbrack, which is where Eugene was born and raised, and beside his home place.
Okay. And did you have any relationship to the Sperrin Mantles previous to being in a relationship with your husband?
Yeah.
How did you connect? Or some people don't ever.
Yeah. I did. I've always had a relationship with the Sperrins, and when I was younger, I took part in the Sperrin Ramble. I ended up kind of going all the way to the final with it, and we had hiked a lot of mountains in the Sperrin. So even from a very young age, and I was also got into fishing when I was probably around 20. Would have fished in a lot of rivers as well, which I think is actually where kind of my real connection for nature began, was through that, where you were just spending a lot of time on rivers and you were learning and seeing birds and learning about, fish and how the river system worked. And, yeah, I suppose it was. And listen, Eugene and I were going out for 10 years before we got married, and didn't build for another few years after that. So I loved being up at his home place and up in the mountains. And that was like for, I suppose, 15 years before we even built our house there,
That's so interesting. In the fishing, was it fly fishing you were doing, or what sort of fishing?
No, I was just using a reel.
Okay, very good.
So, caught a lot of eels at the start as well, but no, and funny, only recently started to learn about fly fishing as well, trying to get back into it again. I found that there wasn't even a lot of females in the fishing, so I didn't even have any friends that I could go with, so I used to try and rope my cousins in to go in and teach them, and I would find then that they would kind of go off with their mates there once they get into it, and I'd be left as a woman again.
How did you get into the fishing?
It was actually through a fellow I was going out with at the time.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. He was big into fishing.
Yeah.
And so he started bringing me, and we used to get up really early and spend the entire day, But yeah, so it was kind of then wherever I went, even in Australia, I would have bought a rod and even fished off a pier or whatever,
So interesting.
It's very random, and my friends used to always laugh, but I do think it was a great way for me to really connect with nature. Because you're really in nature, and you're sitting for long periods of time, and people were like, did you not get bored? And I was like, no. So it's so exciting to me, because not only was it kind of that feeling of, what are you going to catch? But it was just all of your senses being alive around you as well,
Yeah.
So,
completely different experience.
Different,
from anything that you'd ever done before.
Exactly, yeah.
I used to do a bit of fishing with my dad when I was a youngster.
Oh, lovely.
It was like, I'm talking about 40 years ago, it was fly fishing, but I've never followed it through since then. I went over a few times,
That's lovely.
So he was a keen fisherman as well.
Nice memories.
Yeah. So what brought you into the arena of being active and starting up a campaign against what I call the wind factories around Canterbury? What was the catalyst?
So it was probably about 2.5 years ago now, that we actually heard that there was a wind factory proposal on what we know as the Moat, which our home faces onto.
Could you explain what the Moat is? I have listeners from around the world.
Yes.
So explain, if you can, what a Moat is.
Well, the mountain across from us is known by locals as the Moat, and I think that word is derived from like mound.
Okay.
And we obviously have on top of that of Mullaghs of the Moat ancient cairns and these mounds. So I think that's where the word has come from there, and I suppose it's lovingly known by locals as the Moat.
Okay. Because I know I was brought up on land that had a moat on it as well. We called it a rath. And I've actually never seen the moat that you're speaking about, and it's on my list to do, to get out and say, this is the moat, So I'm always curious of what people think of as a moat, and what, I believe it was, back in the day, it was a kind of a historic, a structure built by people to protect themselves and their cattle from the marauding tribe up the road or whatever, and generally built on a high point on a hill or something. At least that's the one where the land I was born on was, they're all over Ireland, moats and rats, and a lot have been erased by poor farmers, not getting at the farmers, but a lot of them are erased. A lot of our heritage is just disappearing, under tractor plows and things like that, which is, there's such a shame.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I suppose that's sort of part of, when we had found out about the proposal, it was just a few people got letters in the community, and there was a consultation happening in the local hall and in a pub in Plumbridge. And we didn't quite understand where this proposal was going. Because it didn't say, it just said Mullaghs, but Mullaghs is part of 4 Mullaghs, and the proposal is actually going across a couple of the Mullaghs. But I think for, I suppose, a couple of months after that, it was actually a feeling of disbelief.
And you went then to the consultation that night?
My husband went to the consultation because I was actually working on a film at the time. And I was working like 14-hour days, and I couldn't actually even go. So my husband went. And I came in quite late that night, and he said, "Ann-Louise, it's just there." He says, "You won't believe where it's going."
And so what was it they were proposing?
So initially it was 12 180 metre tall turbines.
180 metres?
Yeah.
So what would that be the equivalent to, like the 300 feet maybe?
Yeah, I don't work in feet, so
yeah.
It's huge. Well, I suppose there's nothing in Northern Ireland at 180 metres.
Okay, that's
turbine wise.
And building wise, would you know anything?
I don't actually. We have an image on the page of it, like beside the Guildhall, which is much bigger than
much bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives people an idea. Yeah.
Of so even their
scale of them,
the scale.
Yeah.
Compared to a house, like a house is just a wee dot beside them.
Sure. And so there's 12 of them to go up.
There was originally 12, but there's 11 now. Has officially gone into permanent.
Right. Okay. And why was the one dropped out?
I don't know. I think possibly something to do with the landowner. Something just didn't quite happen.
Okay.
And so those 11 now are split between maybe 4 different landowners.
Okay. So this kind of industrialisation coming to the local community, how has that impacted the community before they're even built?
Yeah. So before the official planning application even goes in, there is that very much divisive factor, because the community discovers that very much members of the community embedded in community life, I suppose, has planned this along with the developer.
Yeah.
Maybe around 5 years before any of us really even knew. And so that feeling of mistrust and sort of tension is there.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I suppose what kind of follows is even before an application goes in, the company, and in this case it's RES, actually writes to all the local community organisations and groups asking to meet with regards to funding. Before an official application is lodged, that happens.
Huh.
So it's very, and well, that's what happened in our community.
And has funding already been given out?
We don't know. Not that we know. What happened was the local hall and the GAA club, we actually got in straight after when we found the letters had gone out and contacted them and wrote to them pleading with them not to meet with the developer.
Yeah, okay.
And thankfully those two organisations didn't.
Okay.
But we don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And so where would your house be in relation to the closest turbine?
Yeah, so as I say, we face directly on, and there's we're up quite high as well.
Yeah.
So we kind of face at an elevated level.
Yeah.
So I think we're about, as the crow flies, a mile.
Okay. So just out in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people would be quite open to the idea of wind energy because it's good for the so-called green transition.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might argue with you, oh, this is just NIMBYism, as will the developer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
From my experience, when they came prospecting for gold up here, up on the mountain, just near the reservoir, which is about a quarter of a mile, just over the hedge over there, and this was shouted at us by all comers, oh, those guys are only... But my thinking of it is, isn't it wonderful we're NIMBYs? Because if we didn't discover what was going on, we wouldn't be able to begin to discover the true extent of how extractivism and the green energy transition is devouring the earth we stand on, the water we drink, and the air that we breathe. What do you think about the green transition now? You know, and like we were all duped. I've got solar panels on my roof. You know, I was the first one, and you know, I did a lot here in relation to careful use of energy, and then I begin to become re-educated and discover actually it's just nonsense. There's absolute nonsense. This green energy transition. We're actually burning more coal than ever to support the green energy transition, which makes. So what's your feeling on all of that?
Yeah, I suppose 2.5 years in, at the start, that word NIMBY was quite sort of thrown around, and people would say, well, would you rather have a coal plant on the Moat, you know? And so I suppose these things are kind of almost developed by the industry to really kind of squash opposition. And I suppose seeing how it's all being carried out, it's not being done. I mean, it's far from being done in the right way. And just to give you an example of that, the 3 council areas in the north are holding over 70% of the onshore wind. And that's where Sperrins AOMV is. And there's 1.8 gigawatts of onshore built. And in the pipeline, there is over 2 gigawatts to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we know from Renewable NI's website, it's all going in the 3 council areas.
Okay.
So you're really looking at a completely real inequality towards the Sperrins, towards communities in the northwest. And there's no offshore wind even proposed until after 2030. So, and we're being told that we have to accept all of this because we have to meet these targets by 2030. But there's absolutely no diversification other than onshore wind. And that argument completely melts away when you introduce data centers into the equation. So I think that lifts the lid on all of the hard work and sacrifices these communities have made, letting these turbines, surround them, and what for?
Yeah.
Can
you explain to our listeners the connection between wind turbines, data centers, and, if you like, extractivism as well?
Yeah. So I always
big topics.
I know big topics, and I always kind of like to say they're all connected, because they are. And so we're currently being told by Sony at the minute, that we need to bring the data centers in to mop up the renewables because we've built too much in the Northwest. That's what's being said. And that we're paying them too much money to turn off. But of course, why are we actually even proposing even more in the Sperrins if that's the case? The data centers, we know there's a massive AI boom happening. And so really Ireland has just welcomed them in.
Yeah.
In the south, they're giving over 22% of their electricity to data centers currently. And in the north, just before Christmas, DFE, the Department for Economy, released an AI strategy, which talked about clustering data centers, fast tracking the infrastructure, along with renewables. And it actually also spoke about the displacement of people with all of this.
Really?
Yeah. But that was in the AI strategy the DFE released. So one feeds off the other. And so there's a lot of greenwashing happens with the data centers. They say, well, we will run off renewable energy. They buy these power purchase agreements. But they can't solely rely on renewables because they need 24/7 power. So they always have fossil fuel backup, no matter what.
Yeah.
And we're such a small country, and we are giving away all of our power, and all of our hard-won gains are going to data centers.
Yeah. And I believe data centers, at the end of the day, electricity is far more expensive than water. And they will use water for cooling. Why they use the electricity is to cool the processors, because they get very hot. So like if you have a laptop or if you have a phone and it gets hot, you know that your laptop or phone is doing a lot of work. So it's just scale it up and to cool them down. The choice is electricity and water. And in every case around the world, they will choose water ahead of electricity because water is cheap.
Yeah.
And they never tell you in either case how much electricity they use or how much water they use. They say that's it's a trade secret and we can't give that away. And then the ironic thing about it is because the tininess of the electronics that they're working with, that they must use very pure water.
Yeah.
So not only will they be using water, but they'll be using our drinking water. Yeah. And one can only imagine in the future and they have quite literally sucked the water out of some countries. So what comes to mind is Chile, and the amount of water that's been used down there has been removed from the communities. And they already had a water problem before the data centers ever arrived, So, and I believe there been a planning application passed in Derry Strabane for a data centre?
Yeah, so we discovered about a year and a half ago that there was outline planning given for 4 at Foyport.
Right.
And one of those 4 has been officially passed.
Yeah.
We cannot get an exact figure on the megawatts, but the original application to the council said 32 megawatts, but we now know that application wasn't assessed based on 32 megawatts and that the developer is advertising 100 plus megawatts, which is huge.
Yeah.
But there's no cap. They're saying it's air-cooled. But again, NI Water have said that they actually don't have capacity to take on the discharge. And so the company, from what we can see from some disclosure documents, is they are going to deal with their own wastewater on site. So there really won't be much oversight there.
So there's no independent monitoring?
Not that I would be aware of.
Okay.
And then we only discovered, I think it was yesterday, through Sony's,
Sony is the company, Sony?
So yeah, Sony is in charge of the grid, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And AirGrid is the same as Sony in the south.
Yeah.
But there's a document that they had released last year, which had said that Atlantic Hub, which is the data centers in Derry, had applied for an 80 megawatt to the grid.
Yeah.
And that there was also a 300 megawatt in for a data center at Kilroot.
Oh, right. Yeah. Beside the power station.
Yeah.
But they're going to run that on.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah. So, yeah. And what's happening, I suppose, you kind of really go off what's going on in the south of Ireland. At the minute, they're trying to get this private wires bill passed so that the data centers can basically build their own power lines to hook up to wind farms and whatever other sort of.
Okay.
Which is very dangerous.
Yeah. So the power ends up in the hands of a few people.
Yeah.
And so how does you and your community feel? So there is this story, it's more than a story, that northwest of Ireland is a sacrificial zone, not only for the island of Ireland, but for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
From extractive mining to wind energy to data centers. How do you feel about being a sacrificial zone and an inhabitant of a sacrificial zone? And, you know, when you look at things like they're removing the services from the hospital in Enniskillen, there's no real infrastructure to Donegal, you know, no decent roads. There hasn't been any development and other than upland development in the Donegal southwest, or the southwest of the island,
Mm-hmm.
the southwest of the north bit of the island of Ireland. So that area, including Donegal. Does it feel like a sacrificial zone? Is there a talk in your group about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that these sort of developments create sacrifice zones with the data centers, with the wind farms, with mining. And we are definitely, the Sperrins and the Northwest is, if you see how it's all being laid out, we are definitely a sacrifice zone, and we are, I suppose, the sacrificial lambs, for these big multinational companies, for the tech billionaires. And I mean, how does it feel? I suppose, like anyone facing, a development like this, you have that response of fight or flight. And I think we're at the fight stage.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's what you can do, is fight to protect the area. But you do quickly realise that no one's coming to save you. And no one has the magic answer of how to get these things stopped. And, you know, even our land and all of that area is under prospecting licence. So, and we've had prospecting, you know.
What's happened?
Yeah. All around us.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, once they let the wind factories in, the area is already industrialised. So it makes it a lot easier to have other extractive industries come in off the back of that.
Yeah.
And so I suppose really you can either do one or two things. you can bury your head in the sand, or you can fight against the systems that are obviously facilitating all of this and laying the groundwork for all of this. And I mean, the politicians and the main parties are absolutely, we realised very quickly that none of them were actually going to save us.
Yeah. We would say that there's no help coming from government. There's no help coming from any of the political parties. The council, by its nature, is unable to do anything about it, and probably doesn't have the wherewithal and the funds to do anything about it. So there's no help there. And what we need help with is we literally, and people like us, are the last people to protect and defend the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the earth that supports us right now, but particularly for the future, for those come behind us. And if not us, who?
Yeah.
So, and people would refer to us as activists, as protesters. And when we actually are the final line of defenders and protectors. And my question is, why is it that people don't get this? The fundamental building blocks of life that we need more than anything else. We're not looking after it as priority. People say, "Oh, it'll create jobs, it'll improve our economy." We can't have an active and a healthy economy without active and healthy people, and you can't have active and healthy people unless we have an active and healthy earth. There's the connection right down to the end, And this is all built on the back of going for growth. Yeah, and we are a finite planet.
Yeah.
And what do you think around it? What is your response around that, or what are your thoughts around it?
I mean, I do think that this is kind of the last chance, really. There's very little left as it stands. We know the state our water's in. I do love to follow actually Mary Reynolds from We Are the Ark, and she just says, patch by patch, for people to, I suppose, concentrate on doing what they can with their own patch, because it can feel so overwhelming of how do you tackle all this. And I think that probably also relates to people coming together to defend. I think we're all very busy defending our own patches, but it's all part of the same problem. And I do think probably now is the time that we all kind of come together and work together. And there's so many people, there's so many groups, and new groups forming all the time.
Sure.
And I think that actually in itself gives hope, because everybody is, sort of holding the line against their own kind of patches, their own areas, their own communities. And so there is more of us than there are of them, as they say.
Yeah.
And so that's where you have to probably take hope from, and to work together, and to share, and if somebody even is showing interest in how do I get involved in this, it's to teach other people what we're doing, and that you can challenge systems. You don't have to take no for an answer, and that you can push back.
Yeah.
And this is the last chance. And they're going for the last areas. They're going for the last wild areas.
Yeah.
So that's probably.
So, what would a genuine transition look like for a rural community?
Yeah, I know you said that question over. I really thought about that, because at the minute we're hearing a lot about this just transition, and this committee being set up. And my thoughts on that are, that ship has probably sailed already, because it's all planned out where it's all going. And so nobody wants to actually talk about the fact that we can't sustain this level of consumption and capitalism. And it actually, the reduction of consumption, it needs to be reduced.
That's right.
That's what needs to happen. It's not let's build more wind farms to service more data centers, let's up the consumption, which is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We need to actually just be reducing less, because the world cannot sustain what is happening now. And so that all comes then to the communities, kind of being self-sustaining themselves together. And back to that kind of original, what things used to be like.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear that. They want to think that, you can buy and buy and buy, and endless consumerism and endless growth and bigger. And we just can't, there will be nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people need to get back into growing their own food, to helping each other, to properly be communities again. And defending and restoring their areas,
Yeah. It's about degrowth, isn't it?
Yeah. Because even peatland, we had estimated, even with the proposals, because when we talk about turbines, it's not just turbines. It's roads, it's bases, it's substations, it's battery energy storage and the lithium and the mining. And all of these wind farms, or a lot of them are going on peat.
Yeah.
And peat only kind of covers, I think it's 3% of the land in the world, surface, 3%, but it stores huge, huge amounts of carbon.
Uh-huh.
And
equivalent or greater to the Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in the south, I think it's something like around 60% of wind farms in the south are built on peat.
Uh-huh.
Northern Ireland, we don't actually have a figure, because all of the peatlands under assessed in the north, in the Sperrins, but that's all by design.
Yeah.
In Scotland, I think it's over half of the wind farms are built on peat.
Uh-huh.
So if we were again serious about climate change, we would be protecting and restoring peatland.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about wind farms being built on peat is it takes tremendous amounts of concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Concrete is alkaline, and peat is acidic.
Yeah.
It changes the pH, as do the roads going in, and changes pH. It changes the pH of the water running through the bogs, and it kills kills off the peat. It goes out concentrically out from the centre, gradually killing it off. So as well as the removal, the initial removal, and so on, then you have this knock-on effect going forward. And on top of that, then you remove the sponge layer from the top of the mountains, which quite literally is a sponge.
Yeah.
I think I told the story early on in an earlier podcast, when I came to Oma first back in, I don't know, it must have been 84, I think it was. And there was a massive flood here. It was before the flood barriers were built down in Campsie, and Campsie was flooded up to the windowsills of the downstairs window. Oh no, it was up to the first floor, I think it was. It was really pretty badly flooded. And so that just came tumbling down the mountains from because Oma's in a bowl, and it all collects in Oma, very, very heavy rain. And now they're busy reducing the peat, the sponge, and then they have to also at the same time the council has to think, well, we have to build barriers to stop the houses in Oma from flooding. It's like as if the two departments live in two different planets. And it's just extraordinary, such, how capitalism has managed to degrade, and corporate banditry has managed to degrade policy within our departments, that one neither talks or plans with the other for a future of 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, And that's one of the known side issues of, the alkalization of peat, which is never talked about. You never hear.
Oh, it's a really good point there, actually.
Yeah. So once you saw the bigger picture of how energy and extractivism operates, How did that alter your sense of responsibility for both personally and collectively?
I think it's huge responsibility because you feel responsible to protect the area and protect what can't protect itself or speak for itself. And I suppose as a group, you're finding your way in what works and what doesn't work. And I mean, you're just so connected to a place and your sense of place. To me, even the area is part of us. We are not above, we are part of. And so I suppose as a group, really, you're just working your way in finding what works for you, what kind of buttons to push in challenging departments. And, you're going sort of on new ground as well, because you're asking questions that really has never been asked before. Of departments. And we'd sent an EIR to Sony and they had no idea what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, has nobody been challenging, even the likes of Sony? So it really is sort of building a case and finding out what hasn't been done and what's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a peatland strategy that really isn't worth the paper it's written on. But it makes a good soundbite for departments to put it out. But really, there's absolutely no protection, even for peatlands.
Yeah.
So it's sort of working out, but it's a completely mammoth. It's like the mining, it's just completely mammoth. And discovering just, I suppose, the incompetence of it all, and that it's just a completely developer-led free-for-all.
That's right. Yeah, policies captured everywhere.
Totally captured, yeah.
Yeah. And, when you say the responses from the departments, they're bordering on funny if it wasn't such a serious topic.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, there must be people in there who went in thinking they were doing a good job and so on, and somehow over the years, whatever, lost the will to, and now are just, as well as being downright incompetent, it's like it's done. It's almost on purpose, mm-hmm. the incompetence. And, how could you as a human being, looking back in your life, having spent your whole, so many years in a government department working and supposedly respected in the department, and look at what you've achieved in your life, and it's just pure rubbish, and you know it.
Yeah.
And you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and it's deeply worrying, really. Even what you discover, from asking questions in FOIs and EIRs, it's absolutely really troubling that, there's a lot of people walking about that feel that they are protected, that the government is there to protect, and, don't worry, someone's, but actually it's not. It's there to protect itself and to facilitate big business and extractive big business.
Corporate banditry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're seeing there at the minute, and I don't know if you might have seen, but even there, just the likes of Drumquin at the minute.
That's right.
Yeah, they're facing
another application, double the amount of.
Yeah, 5 live planning. They're already surrounding, and I I did a walk with them there just after Christmas, and they're already surrounded. There's 5 more live planning applications, and but yet the politicians are saying, well, look, we've the companies have done the consultations, the tick boxes, and
the marketing exercises.
yeah. And you have just this community that's being completely encircled and swamped.
Yeah.
And, nobody's looking at the cumulative impact of all of this.
That's right.
Huge cumulative impact.
That's right. Yeah.
Or even the carbon footprint of these,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and Burkdurg, obviously they were through them all, and Babrata.
Yeah.
And Babrata are facing, multiple JRs now just to protect their mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the stress of that on communities is really cruel.
Yeah.
And yeah, the politicians are really nowhere to be seen.
Sitting on the fence to see what way the wind will blow, and then we'll jump on the bandwagon when the wind blows in one particular direction and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So if you could imagine the mountains and the rivers and the beings that we don't know are there, could speak, what do you imagine they might say to us?
Help.
Yeah.
I think they probably say, "Yous are our brothers and sisters, and yous have completely abandoned us and lost connection with us, and we're very, very busy trying to keep things alive." And I mean, they are much more resilient than we are. And we think we're such a great species and we're so strong and we're so powerful, but we're not. It's quite the opposite. We're weak.
We're so dependent.
Yes. And I think they would probably say, come back and to gain your connection with nature. You're part of us. You're a part of nature. And come back to that, because I think only when people start to do that and develop that connection again can they actually truly save the place and appreciate what we're losing.
Yeah.
So.
And if you could look ahead 25 years from now and look back from that place, what would you see?
What do I think it's going to be like in 20?
What would you like it to be like?
What would I like it to be like? Yeah,
You're standing in that place. You're standing in that place.
Yeah. I mean, I would like that what is remaining is left untouched, and that things begin to improve.
Okay. I'll pose the question differently.
Is it my
It's 25 years on from now, and you're standing on the mountain and you're looking around. What have you achieved?
What have I achieved?
What has your community
achieved? Yeah.
Or what have the Sperrins, the people across the Sperrins have achieved?
Yeah.
What have the people across the Sperrins achieved?
Well, I mean, again, this might not be, but I think that there's no other choice than to stand on the mountain and look around and hope that it's untouched.
Yeah.
That it's protected, that all of these huge threats that we're facing are don't come any more to fruition than they already are, and that we can say that there's something left for future generations at that point, that I can die happy that there's something left, because the only other choice is that it's all gone, and that to me, it's just not an option.
Yeah.
So for our community, I mean, that we get the proposal stopped. But even if the Moat proposal goes away, there's, we've heard that there's possibly one going in for Dart.
Right.
So really, it's the bigger picture and the bigger picture for everyone.
Yeah.
So, and how is that done? I think you have to tackle perhaps the root cause and these policies that are creating all of this.
Yeah. And even Even the greed that underlies it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you spoke a little bit earlier about what gives you hope. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, of course, on this journey, you're constantly meeting amazing people.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, aren't you?
Yeah.
Just amazing people that give you hope.
Yeah.
People that are, you know, now giving up their lives to protecting the area. And that is amazing in itself, because it tells you that there's still good out there. There's still lots of people out there with fight in them. And you're meeting new people all the time. And I think just life brings you into their lives and connect, you know.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that, to connection. Yeah. Just like, I suppose, all of the extractivism is connected and feeding off each other, you know, the hope and the goodness is also connected.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. It's like mycelium, is it that they say? And so it's just to keep connecting.
Keep connecting.
Yeah.
Looking for the little places of hope.
Yeah. Little spots, pockets of hope. Yeah.
I think we'll leave it at that. What a lovely conversation. Thanks a million for doing it. And yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you. Yay.
Across the Sperrins, whether it's confronting a proposed gold mine or wind factory, communities are asking deeper questions about extractivism, about corporate capture, about greenwashing, about what a genuinely just transition might look like for everyone. The bogs matter, the water matters, the health of community matters, the integrity of process matters. If the so-called greenwash transition is to mean anything, it must protect the very ecosystems it claims to defend. It must strengthen communities, not fracture them. It must reduce harm, not relocate it. The Sperrins are not empty space. They are lived in, loved and a storied land. And perhaps the real question this episode leaves us with is this. In the rush towards the future, will we pause long enough to ask what and who we are willing to sacrifice? Thank you to Ann-Louise for sharing her story, and thank you for listening. If you feel that stories and information like this matter and deserve to be heard more widely, you can help by following the podcast, leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with others. It makes a real difference. For the air we breathe, the water we drink, the earth that supports, and the health of community for generations to come, we hold the line.